When he's not crashing his motors, I think it's fair to say that Richard Hammond probably has the most expensive watches of the Top Gear trio. Welcome back to WatchGecko. I am your host Chris, and we are continuing to look at the watches worn by the host of Top Gear and later Grand Tour, James May, Richard Hammond and Jeremy Clarkson. This week we're taking a look at the youngest and shortest member of the trio, Richard Hammond. Now, Richard Hammond's watch collection is expensive, but I'm not just interested in how expensive or how much a watch costs. No, I'm looking at how cool these watches are in my opinion and how much I would like to wear them. Now, before we get started, if you're looking for a new watch strap, then head on over to the WatchGecko website. We have a special link in the description below, which will give you 10% off your first order when you sign up. And also, you will be the first one to hear about our latest newsletter-only deals. This is Richard Hammond, so of course we're going to start this one off with a crash, quite literally. During an episode of the Grand Tour in 2017, Hammond was on the fourth run of a hill climb with the Rimac Concept 1 when the electric sports car careened off the road and plummeted 110 meters downhill. Now, allegedly, the car continued to burn for 5 whole days and Hammond managed to crawl out of the car with no less than a broken leg. But unfortunately, he did leave his Rolex behind. Now, I've seen some news outlets reporting that it was a Submariner, but by looking at the pictures, I can't see the Cyclops, so I'm inclined to believe this is a Sea Dweller. But to be safe, I've gone with both on here. The 40mm Sea Dweller is much of a muchness in terms of silhouette and profile when compared to the old shape Submariner. It's just a little bit thicker, without a Cyclops, and has a helium escape valve on the side of the case, obviously with higher water resistance too. Now, the 40mm Sea Dweller I've seen online for going around £6,500 to £8,000, again dependent on condition, and the Rolex Submariner older shape seems to be around the same price again, also dependent on condition. But I'm pretty sure, nay positive, that it is the Sea Dweller we are looking at here. Now, this is quite an interesting one because it's not really a watch I know too much about. But on a few specials in his Top Gear days, Richard Hammond has worn a Tissot T-Touch. It is a solar-powered smartwatch. Now, looking at the website, it looks like it is made of titanium with sapphire crystal and is still available today. Now, I don't mind Tissot as a brand. It's not my favorite of the more affordable Swatch Group brands. That, of course, would be Hamilton, but I'm not a big fan of smartwatches. Now, unlike a lot of pundits, I actually have nothing against them, but they just aren't for me personally. But this watch is a nice change from the Apple Watches you see about today, so yeah, there is that, I suppose. Now, this one will currently set you back up to £1,050. Now, on the original Top Gear, he wore a watch which I kind of have experience with. Well, at least experience with a slightly different complication of this watch. He has a Breitling Avenger chronograph in white. It's a big watch, and I actually owned the Avenger GMT in the same colorway. And to this day, it is the only watch that I have regretted selling. And I will be buying again in the future, I have no doubt. Now, Breitling have a really cool history, being founded in 1884 and are more known for their tall style aviation watches, but they do all sorts. Their watches today are on the bigger side, but in my experience, most don't wear too badly, thanks to their ability to absolutely hug the wrist. Now, I would expect this Avenger Chrono to be around the £3,000 to £4,000 mark, again, dependent on condition and where you buy it from. This next watch is also a Top Gear era spot. It is the Omega Speedmaster. The Speedy is a legendary watch, and for my money, one of the most important watches in history. Now, my vision isn't that good. I don't know if this is the Hesalite or Sapphire version, but whatever it is, I can tell you that it looks really good in only the way a classic Speedmaster can. Now, depending on the model you can get, and by that I also mean whether it's a Speedy reduced or higher, you can get a Speedy on your wrist for as little as £2,000. But the better the model, of course, the more you'll pay. Finally, we come to the last watch on this list, and it looks like it's one that Hammond has worn mainly on the specials in his TV shows and a lot more recently. It's the Rolex Explorer 2 in polar white. Coincidentally, this is actually one of my favourite Rolex models, a proper tool watch through and through. Now he wears the newer 42mm version, which I believe isn't bad, but again, my favourite is the older 40mm version with the red GMT hand. But the orange one is still pretty good. So the older models on this will cost you around 6 to 6.5 grand. However, the newer versions, you can get it from an AD for around £8,000 to £9,000. Good watch, this one, finishing off strong. So these are just some of the watches worn by the hamster, aka Richard Hammond, on both Top Gear and the Grand Tour. I have to say, they are not bad choices. However, I would say that his collection feels a little bit boring when compared to James May. Hammond seems to have more of an interest in the higher end luxury models, mainly Rolex. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does colour my opinion of his collection as a whole. I'm going to give him a solid 6 out of 10 here. I don't think it's a bad score, and I really like some of his watches. They are rock solid. I just think it could have some additional flair in his collection. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Now, if you want to see James May's collection, you can click on the screen or in the description. Otherwise, take care, all you beautiful watch nerds, and I'll see you next time when I'm going to be looking at Clarkson's watches.